Blaine Birch, Mike Miley with Nobody Told Me with Mike and Blaine. And I'll tell you what, we're live for the first time ever on Facebook, right? So we're live on Facebook for the first time for episode 48. Episode 48. And the topic of this is going to be say, hey, fail often so you can succeed sooner, right? So fail often so you can succeed sooner. Episode 48, Mike and Blaine. Hey, man, what's up?
Not much, man. Ready to go. I got a nice new brew this week. I'll call it this. I almost cracked a beer and then realized it was from Scotland. And I thought, oh, maybe I should see if I can find another local. They're getting harder and harder to find because we've done like 90 some different beers here. So Total Darkness, and it's an Imperial dessert porter, not desert, Imperial dessert porter. So I guess it should be sweet, from New Level Brewing in Calgary, and it's 10%. So we'll see how that goes near the end of this.
All right. Well, 10%, that means we're going to be a little slurry. A little slurry. So, hey, I stuck close to home once again, right? I found another San Antonio brewery, Isla Street. Isla. If anybody knows Spanish better than me, help me. Isla is what it looks like. So, Isla. Whatever. Anyway, what drew me to this was, the can's kind of cool. It's called Rojo. It's a Hefeweizen, but check this out. It is brewed with red soda, right? So if you ever seen like Big Red or red soda or things like that, it's got red soda built into it. Oh my God, I was a fan as a kid.
Nice.
Now Big Red's a little too sweet for me as an adult, but as a kid, I was all over it. So I'm excited to drink Rojo today because of that. So, hey, cheers.
Sweet. Cheers, man.
And speaking of beers, people have bought us beers in the past. So it's that thing's going pretty well now, right? We got people that are buying beers. We got people that are going to the website, mikeandblaine.com, and buying us a beer, right? And remember, if you buy us a beer, we're going to talk about you on during the show. We're going to talk about the beer. We're going to buy the beer if we can find it, the one that you said for us to go get it. So that's what it is. Somebody's messing with my dog back there. That dude has been quiet all day long. You get to this point in the day, you're like, oh no, well, he's been quiet. It's 4:00 in the afternoon. He's been quiet. What better time? He must hear the rumble from my office coming. He don't know what it is.
Yeah, he's getting excited. He wants to watch too. There's one person live on Facebook. So somebody's might be me watching. I don't really know, or you.
It's probably me, right?
There we go. Hey, we're live. One person, Mike's watching himself. So, but anyway, it's cool to be live. It's our first time, so nobody knows we're doing this. Hopefully, we'll start to get people noticing. But we're getting lots of downloads every week. We're getting people on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everything else checking us out, YouTube. So that's really cool to see. But we should dive into the topic here because it's kind of a cool one, very interesting one.
Well, yeah, you know what it is. I mean, it's fail early so you can succeed more often, or fail often so you can succeed. What is it? Fail often so you can succeed sooner. Now, what's interesting about that is that I've heard that in various other ways, right? Fail fast, fail early. The end result is this has become a mantra in the conference room for most people, meaning that, hey, when we're talking about it, let's not commit to something that doesn't work. And too often I see companies doing that.
Yeah. And it feels culturally that it's changed a lot. And I actually feel this more in the US than I do in Canada, where there's a very much a culture of failure is okay. Learn from it, fail fast, of course. So you hear it all the time, but try things, try it fast, test it out. Don't get too attached to something, learn from it and carry on. And it can be a bit of a hard thing to overcome at times, where because you want to succeed and you want to look like a success right out of the gate, but success is really hard. And it's just, you have to fail to get to success.
Well, and this happens at every stage, right? Because I can remember, some of the best ideas I've ever had probably have been on the back deck of a house. Doing this, I mean, I've got great ideas, but here's what happens to me. You tell me if this happens to you or not, but here's what happens to me. I get to talking about an idea with my friends and we all get excited about it. We're all, just like adding in little bits and the idea becomes bigger and bigger and it's going to change the world. And then as soon as, and this is, I think, called groupthink, but as soon as you get off of the back deck and you go talk to somebody who wasn't part of that hour or two long conversation, they go, it's okay. I don't know if I do it or not.
Yeah, it's and then when you actually go into executing on something and you try something, that's when you find out everything is much harder than it looks. Because from the outside, things always seem simple. And the more further you get into things, of course, the more complicated it gets, the trickier it gets, the more places you can stumble and trip. And but that's something that entrepreneurs, especially in the tech world, you don't have time. You have a burn rate. You so often, you have a very limited time to get to success. You have to sort of suck it up and say, we are going to dive in and we're going to learn from failure, but we're going to fail a lot. We're going to fail often, but that's okay, because it's going to get us to those wins. And once you get those wins, you can start feeling the momentum, and you can start the ball starts rolling downhill. Instead of shoving it all the way up, it starts to go tip over the other side.
Yeah, and I think it does start with the idea, right? Being able to just throw that idea out there to as many people as you can, and be told you're crazy as many times as they'll let you. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not going to work, because when people start to tell you you're crazy, you're like, oh, I got to think about this differently, or I didn't think of this obstacle that maybe now I have to address differently. Because when I was in Seattle and we had a whole room full of Microsoft engineers, they'll say, oh, anything's possible with software. And that was always their answer, right? Not that really should we do it, or it's financially responsible to do it. It's, we can do anything you say. If you can dream it, we can do it.
Yeah. And that actually circles all the way back to even at the idea point, failure there is about, like, are you actually addressing a problem? Is it a nice to have or a need to have? Is it like they always say, is it a vitamin or is it a Tylenol or whatever they say? Like, is it something that you really need? And a lot of times that's the first big place where startups will fail. They're not really addressing a problem, or if they're addressing a problem, it's really not a very big one.
All right. So when was the first time you failed that you can remember, right? Because now I have to go all the way back to 1900s to remember. But when was the first time you failed?
I failed. Okay, context here. Are you talking business or?
Yeah, meaning, okay, so you had an idea. Yeah, failure in business. You had an idea and you started to execute on it, right? It got more than an idea. It was like going, I'm going to make this happen. And you hit a roadblock and you decided to give up on it because it was a failure.
Yeah. I'm going back to my agency days. There were times, honestly, when we would come up with a way to solve a customer problem, and the idea was big, the idea was huge, but it just wasn't feasible to do. So that the first sort of failures were things where, and we would, of course, we'd generally, like, we'd failed before we got off the ground with it, because you kind of find out that that's not going to work. It's client's dollar, and you can't mess it up. Where it got trickier down the road was when we started to try and build our own products. And we right after the very first iPhone came out, which was, there was almost nothing in the store, and there was just this, it was so basic. And we, like a jillion people, dove in and started making apps and thinking, oh, we'll make some apps here and we'll just be automatically rich. And then we had apps that were just like literally absolute utter failures. Nobody wanted them. Nobody wanted to download them. And then the big problem there is, it wasn't fail fast. It was, we built an app because we thought we were so smart, and then put it up there. And the big learning was, that was a lot of money and time and energy flushed down the toilet, because you'll never make, it's like, yeah, we made $5 on an app that cost, 50 grand to build or whatever. Right.
Yeah. Well, I got beat worse than that. The hotel staffing company I had, right? It was, I learned early, because I tried to do, in the first failure points that I got out early, because I'm like, it doesn't work, was I had to be in full service, high-end hotels and resorts, right? Because every time I tried to do like a Red Roof Inn or a Super 8 or something like that, the labor model didn't work, and the people couldn't pay for it, right? It's just like, the smaller it was, The less money they had, the more I had to chase them for money. And it was like on their expectations of service was way wrong. It was just bad all the way around. So because I'm smart, I gave up on the hotels. Because I'm dumb, instead of hotels, what I did was I said, I think I can make this work in restaurants too, right? This hotel staffing, because what I was trying to do was not have to open offices in every city. I was thinking maybe I can get more business in one city by expanding my offering to a different, service. So instead of hotels, I'm like, well, if I can give hotels, housekeepers and landscapers and dishwashers, I can give bus waiters, servers, dishwashers for a restaurant.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about flushing money down the drain, I stayed on way too long because it was something I knew should work, right? In my bones, I knew it should work because everything just kind of blended in. I didn't have to create a new model. We just recruited and filled orders. Yeah. The hard part was the back end, collecting the money, right? Okay. From a restaurant, when you're dealing with Marriott and Hyatt and Hilton, they're going to pay you. When you're dealing with, Sam's local restaurant, family diner, or whatever it is, they got a tendency to not pay and then avoid you, right? So then them out all these hours for people if they wanted to get them through or get them through whatever. I got beat out of a lot of money, right? And it's not money I put up front. I mean, I did put it up front, but I did build an app. It was gone. At least you had an app you could try to resell or repurpose.
What that reminds me a lot of is early in my agency days, you had this feeling like it's anything for a buck. Like we just got to have cash coming in the door because it has to go out the door. It's got to pay people. It's got to pay rent. It's got to pay all this stuff. And the problem with that is we kind of had some of those types of clients too, that the contracts were really small. Scope creep was rabid, and it's hard to get paid in the end. Like that was, so he's like, man, we broke our back. We did some really cool work, but it took 3 times as long because it had changed 50 times. We didn't have the contracts buttoned up, so we lost a pile of money, and then we can't get them to pay. And you do a few of those, and that'll fail off and fail off and fail, and then it's like, no, this is not working. What we need are more of these big ones over here. We now these are much bigger clients, and we can negotiate with them. And when you get through, their legal department, sign a contract, as long as you read the contract and got it set up right, you're in pretty good shape. So it changed dramatically. And so that actually, we started putting rules in, like we had our minimums. We wouldn't do a job without this much minimum. And we wanted money up front, especially if they were new and all this, because all those little failures along the way that cost so much money, those are hard lessons, really hard lessons to learn, right?
I would agree. And it just made me think of, we have all these meetings about, okay, why or how, right? Why will this work or how will this work? I don't have a lot of meetings that are why not. Why not, or why can't it, or, and I think those are pretty valuable. It's almost one of those things where I'm like going, if you want to fail often, if you want to fail early, that has to be part of your schedule, which is once a week. Why not? Why is this not working? Why shouldn't it work? How would you kill it if you were a competitor? You've got to be able to have and answer those questions internally. That's going to drive you to that quicker decision to get out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's the critical skill you have to develop is knowing when to walk away from an idea like that, recognizing when that didn't work. And that timing, that's not necessarily an easy thing to sometimes recognize, because there's times where it's like you should walk away and it's an utter failure and it's not going to get any better. But I know there's other times that we've had a failure and we haven't stuck with it long enough. We didn't test enough things. And then you start to go, oh man, we tried that like a year ago. We got a little bit of a pushback. It didn't work. We abandoned ship right away. Like it's like a marketing campaign or something like that. And all of a sudden, man, it's working today. Like, we kind of got led right back down the same path. Now we got it working, and we abandoned a bit early. And so it's a little bit easy at times to go like, what you're learning from the failure isn't necessarily, you leave or you cut it off. Sometimes it's like adjust. You are on the right path. You've got to hit the right mark. And that's happened to me several times where, I look back and go, man, if we would have stuck with it a little longer, we might have had success earlier.
What's cool about that though is even if you start to see success at the end, you go, oh, we just cut it off. It isn't like you cut it off and it's dead. You say, okay, well, we had success here. Let's retool it. Let's take what was working at the very end, retool it, repackage it, and go. And that's still failing often. You still failed on your next try. All you did was retool and try to repurpose it.
Yeah. It's easy for people to think that failure is like it's all encompassing. And no, it's you're learning from it. And what you learn is you have to be open-minded enough to know whether it's like we're going to abandon that completely or we're going to stick with it and adjust, right?
Yeah, but I mean, we've talked already about just products and services, but this is marketing campaigns. This is, critical hires or, people you add to your team. This is everything you do. It's okay to fail, but fail early, right? Just fail fast and then, move on to the next thing.
And I will add the subtext of that is fail cheap. That is so important. Because we at the start, you always think something's one hell of an idea, especially on the marketing side. And it is so easy to dive in and go, oh, this is going to work. Look I did the calculations. Our cost of acquisition is going to be X, or we haven't even tried it yet. Then you can put out a big pile of money and it can be just like crickets. Yeah. So you want to be able to do small, fast tests. Cheap is the other one. Do it cheap. Find out really low tech. Before you start building, technology out, before you start spending on ad space and on anything and above, right?
Well, I mean, for years I've used that saying, test then invest, right? Which is, and we do that with conferences. I still do that with conferences. If I'm not sure that a conference is going to work for what I want it to work for, I'll just buy a regular ticket, and that's my test. I'll go there and experience it as an attendee and see what other vendors are there and see what the attendees are there. And then I'm going, yeah, it's worth our while. And then go back the next year as a sponsor. That's another way to do that.
We've done that too, where we do get in and do the kind of like the scout year and walk around, talk to people and stuff. Cause those booths and everything are so expensive and they're really hard to make a buck, but they're important in other ways. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is we kind of did that with this podcast. We took that one little blurb, right, and took $250 and threw it on Audio Go. Remember that we had downloads and web subscribers and all kinds of stuff just for that little bit. But it told us that that would work for us. I think it would work for us if we wanted to pour a little jet fuel on it. I think there are items out there that let you just test a little bit. Even Facebook ads lets you test at $5 or $10 a day.
Yeah. We there's one thing that this reminds me of, and I learned, this is a lesson that still burns in my mind. Back in my agency days, we were sponsors and did all of the sort of promotion and materials and everything for a local festival called the Fringe Festival. And it's internationally known. It's a pretty big festival. And I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people show up every year, but it's a massive crowd over a week. Like it's just a really big event. And I remember, I couldn't even tell you how many years ago this was, 10, 15 years ago, maybe, but we, as part of our sponsorship, we got sort of some cash, but then we did some contra, and part of the contra, we got to blah, 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 blah. Right. And, so they had the catalog for all of the shows and everything. I can't remember how many of these they printed. It was some ridiculous, like 500,000 or something. Like it was an insane amount. And we had the center spread, full color, everything else. And we thought, oh, what are we going to put in there? Mm-hmm. And so we put an ad for one of our mobile apps, which was actually selling really quite well. And we thought, oh, this is going to drive it up the sales. And like, we were just like, this is going to kill it. We're going to get up on the, and nope. They came out the entire week of the Fringe. We looked and we're like, yeah, there wasn't even a bump. Sales were good, but I don't think we sold an app. It's just like sales were just like, they were great. They were solid. We were, for a while, that was one of the number one in the category and all this stuff. But there was no impact. And then, it's kind of on the debrief, you're kind of looking and going, it's the wrong place, the wrong app for the wrong people. And it could have been a really expensive lesson learned, because that was really, expensive, valuable space.
Yeah.
And so it just makes me like, every time I was like, is it in the right place for the right people at the right time? And can you test it cheap? Because it's just like, what a massive failure. It was a nice looking hat, but it was just a failure to end, right?
Well, here's something that we tried different, right? Because I'll talk conferences. And we went to several conferences, the same conference 3-4 years in a row. And everybody's like going, why doesn't this work? Why? It should work, but it would just be a long burn afterwards. You'd see people trickle in rather than a big bump in sales. It'd be like, I'm gonna have to work these conference leads for the next 6 months.
Yeah, easy. Yeah,
it's easy. So we tried something different one time, because I felt like we failed. We tried different specials. We tried different swag. We tried different, speaking, paid for speaking. It doesn't matter. Whatever was out there, we tried something different. So this year, we'll say 4 years in, the fourth year in a row, I took a Square reader, took a Square, credit card reader.
Yeah.
And we positioned, it was a cool visual. We positioned our booth right next to the demo booths or whatever, right? Where they have tech demos all day long. You come in and you show your things. And what the cool visual was, me actually taking credit cards and people subscribing to Cashflow Tool while our competitors were giving demos.
Nice.
Beside me.
Nice.
And all we did was give a ridiculous amount of discount if you bought at the show. If you bought at the booth right then, you say, hey, you just try it right now, you get this ridiculous discount for the next year or 2 years, whatever it was. Nice. And I sold more in the first week, right, or at the show, than we had in any first week before that, in the 3 years before that. All we did different was say, you buy it right now, you make a decision right now, and you get this discount.
Yeah. It's amazing what like, you have to be really innovative, because it's amazing what might work and what might not. And but when you think about that, it comes down to really, it's not about you, it's about the people there. And if you really are disciplined and thinking about those potential customers, what are they going to care about? What would make them move? What would make them excited? Because it's so easy to say, well, we're going to say this, we're going to say that, this is what we're all about. And it just falls on deaf ears. And it's hard to be disciplined enough and to be able to say, it's all about the customer and what's going to make them move, what's going to make them trigger.
Well, what's funny is that the accountant bookkeeper mind is towards paying the least amount of money, right? So they'll pay for a year in advance to save, 2 months worth of subscription fees, right?
Yeah.
That's why that works. We used to get a lot more annual subscriptions and monthly subscriptions because of that.
Yeah. What's
funny about that is that really kind of violates some of the cash flow principles that I teach, which is maintaining more control of your cash. Right? So, and I used to get into it with, with a partner at some point in time that, why are we putting out a year or 2 years worth of stuff that we don't know if it's going to work for us yet? Why not just do the monthly and then we can convert it to something later once it's already a part of our process? Yeah. And it just was what fell on deaf ears, because the accounting mindset is, no, I'm going to be paying more for the next 2 months than I would if I just pay for it up front. Then we get those 2 months, is the way they think. So that's understanding your customer. So that's why those annual discounts work.
Yeah. There was at one time we offered annual discounts. But because what we were promoting is, hey, we're going to give annual discounts, but we're still going to let you pay monthly for it. So you're going to sign an annual contract, you'll get the discount, but we care about your cash flow. That was sort of the angle we took. But it ended up that, like, as we've moved more up market and we've got finance pros and everything, it's just like, they just pay up front. It's like, it's fine. To get that discount, they'll pay everything up front. If they don't want a discount, generally it's still an annual contract, but they'll pay monthly for a larger fee. And then it is more all about cash flow, right? So, it's interesting to we went down the same path a little bit in thought there.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think. There's been a couple of specials that we put out there when we talk about failing early and all that. There's been a couple of specials that we put out there where people just beat us. Right? There was a way to game the system. So, unfortunately for us, we started creating specials with that in mind, and we're like, going, wait a second, we're fighting battles we don't even know exist yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We're actually trying to build in all these safeguards where if somebody comes in, and I think the point in time was unlimited storage, and then we had some people take advantage of the unlimited storage, because we wanted the user count, and then people were like uploading movies and stuff. And it just, it costs us an incredible amount of money to store people's videos. So then you have to go back. I said, let's fight the battle that we have it when we have it. Which means, okay, yeah, they gamed the system, they got us, but they're still a user. Now we just put in safeguards and back them back off. It's unlimited up to a certain amount per file.
Yeah, that's the problem. You learn the hard way with all those things. So that is, again, it's you fail on those things, and you got to figure out, okay, how do we adjust? But hopefully you fail on these little things before it becomes fail in a lot of little things before it becomes one big thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What about people? Right. We've talked about, I know we've had episodes where we've talked about hiring and termination. You'd like to think, some people, you're opposite of what some people think. Some people think hire fast, fire slow, or is it hire slow, fire fast?
Yeah. Hire slow, fire fast. That's the mantra. And we've been guilty. Like I've been really fortunate throughout my entire career to have had really incredible staff and incredible hiring most of the time. But there's absolute hard learnings and exceptions. And what I learned is it was too much on gut too often. And it wasn't enough on some of the meat and potatoes. Like let's make sure we've got our processes in place. Again, hire slow. So let's take time, interview with numerous people, have some structure to it. And then if they're not a good fit, move them out fast, because if they're not a good fit for us, we're not a good fit for them likely either. But that is the hardest thing to do. We always talk about that, but it's really hard once you've got someone, they've committed to you, they're working for you, then you might find out they aren't as committed as they claimed. It's hard to move people out, right? Like it's because they're people. We don't want to. But I've always looked back and thought, anytime I've had to fire someone, my biggest mistake was I held on too long. And almost any entrepreneur or business owner I've talked with, that is literally what they'll say too is, yeah, I tried. We tried and we held on too long, and then it made it harder and harder and harder for everybody.
Yeah. So, I think that works with what we're doing with SaaS and, the bank right now. But when I was running a staffing company and running restaurants, that doesn't work. There is no hiring slow, right? Because it's like, people just turn over too fast. Like,
okay. Yeah.
It is on gut. It's on field. People leave spur of the moment. There's no loyalty to those type of positions. You're like, I got a better job for 15 cents more an hour. They go to the restaurant 2 doors down, right? Those type of things. So it's, we just bring people in, not everybody, but people that we thought at least had a chance, give them a chance, put them in. Now, what I found in SaaS is I found a process that I really like. We'd have the screening of the resumes, but the resumes we liked, we would send them to Jobma. Have you heard of this? JOBA? No. All right. No. We'd send them a link to Jobma. And under Jobma, you can ask people video questions. So I would record 2 or 3 questions, right? It would be me on the screen. They'd be seeing me. I'd give it like a 3-minute intro to the company. Say, listen, I want to learn more about you, blah. And I'd have 3 questions for them. At the end of each question, they'd have to record up to a 5-minute video back and answer that question. Yeah. So 3 of those questions, and at the end, press submit. Then I get the video submissions, and I get 3 answers to 3 questions.
I'm going to write that one down.
It's fantastic. And I think they got a free version, or it's a very simple, cheap version. So Jobma. Yeah. So then I got to see not only your resume, then I got to see, before we spent any time on Zoom, because I only recorded the videos once, and everybody that applied got to see the same set of videos, same questions.
Yeah.
And then from there, we would pick some people to come in, right? So now I've narrowed it down. This is kind of that third gate. But I stopped just having a regular interview where I'm just going to go, hey, what are your goals? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? You know, what color are my shoes? You know, whatever it is. I would say, hey, listen, this isn't an interview. This is a tryout. This is an audition, right? And what I mean by that is I'm going to give you well, in this case, I say, here's a feature of our product that we sell. Here's a feature. I want you to present it to the executive team as if you wanted this feature in the product. Just come in and say, here's what this feature can do. Here's why we need it. Those type of things. That's going to be the whole meeting. It's not an interview. It's a meeting, and you're in charge of the meeting, and you're presenting to us. Right? Yeah. And so we held it in the conference room. People came in with PowerPoint presentations with handouts, and they would just present on a feature. And I'm like going, dude, that got me. Can I work with this person? That was that question we were trying to answer is, can I work with this person? Because we're going to be sitting in meetings like this, talking about these types of things. How do you present? How do you, defend your ideas? How do you interact with people that are at different levels in the company? And it was ingenious. I mean, it worked wonders, better than any other interview style I've ever used in the world.
That's amazing. And the really nice thing about that is it cuts out, like every time we post a job, it's like, 200 resumes came in and 190 of them were not related to the position at all. I think it was people like spray and pray. They just upload their resume everywhere and they don't even know what job they're applying for. Sometimes.
You know what causes that? I'm going to tell you, unemployment causes that a lot of times. Because there's a required minimum, at least in the US, there's a required minimum number of applications you have to submit per week to get your check. Right. So people just go, yeah, apply. Like, this is for a forklift operator and you're a hotel, front desk person.
Yeah. It's it was and also time consuming going through it, but that would be a way that would sort of cut all of those ones out that aren't interested and save us a bunch of time. Right. So we're not spending time talking with people that really just don't care. Right.
Well, that's why I like job mode, because it required somebody to spend an extra 15 minutes, because I kept it all short answer, do this in less than 90 seconds. So 15 minutes total. And if you can put in 15 minutes to record a video yourself before I invited you in to spend a half hour with you, I didn't want you anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good way to vet people, good way to qualify people so that you're not wasting anybody's time, including theirs. Right.
That's right. So, how do you? All right. So let's say you hire somebody, and there's still a little bit of gut there, right? You're in there, you're interviewing more and more and more. There's still a little bit of gut feel. They come in, and I changed because it used to happen where people get just slogged. That first week, you got to get them involved really quickly, or else they just feel like they're, what is this? You don't want their motivation to just be killed in the first week.
Yeah.
So every day we made them present at the end of the day, right? So that way I could train for a couple hours in the morning. Here, we're going to train on this. I want you to work on these 4 questions and present them back to us at the end of the day. So they learn something, they got a chance to build something on their own. And a lot of times it's for me to get new ideas, something else I was working on. So it was kind of a working day. They didn't waste their time. It wasn't just, bullshit questions. It was like going, hey, we're thinking about this. Tell me some reasons why it would work and why it won't work. And present it to me at the end of the day. And that, man, you got them talking in front of you. You got them used to everybody answering questions. You got to see how they thought, and they were doing relevant real world work instead of just being thrown into hey, read this stuff and go through the app 16 times and, give me a demo, or those type of things. It was a lot better way to embed somebody in the company.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's an easy one to forget, is how important it is to get people moving, but also, that's how you find out if they're going to be a success or a failure. Is you got to get them. You can't just let them sit and slowly work their way in. You got to get them doing stuff and interacting with your team and being effective and getting excited. And man, the worst thing is if they feel like they're just sitting there twiddling their thumbs, waiting for some time for something to happen. Right.
That's why we gave them the presentation. So even if I couldn't be with them for 7 hours, at least on that 7.5 hour, they were working on something that they had to present back to me. Whether it was, hey, I want you to learn everything about our privacy policy, or that would be dumb, but
oh boy, that sounds dry.
Boy, make somebody do that. That's dumb. but you might say, hey, listen, I mean, we're thinking about these 3 features, or we're thinking about how do I address somebody that says I don't have time, or I'm not interested, or they're real world things that we're trying to just figure out.
Yeah. Man, well, and people are complicated. Like that's I'm sure we've done whole episodes on that already, but it's complicated. And that's just an area I hadn't even considered when you're talking about the topic of fail fast. And it's like, yeah, that is a key area. It's not just finding customers and you know what, fail fast with customers too. Sometimes it's firing customers, not just getting those new ones and making sure you're on the right ones and everything too. But with me, and same with you, I know for a lot of it is I go back to product all the time, because that's what we're so much about.
It's interesting about the firing customers, because man, they can zap resources from you. I mean, they can absolutely just wear you down, zap resources.
Yep.
I have people that every time there's a glitch, like we'll say in a product, they encounter just a little small thing that's fixed, usually within a day, which I think is really good.
Yeah.
They'll say, oh, well, I think that deserves this. I think it deserves a spiff from you. I think it deserves a t-shirt. I think it is. I'm like going, man, come on. It's like it deserves.
when I see all the little bugs and stuff you see in Google and Apple and everything else, I'm like, those guys have 1,000 of the best engineers in the world. I feel pretty good about our stability. It's so rare when the little thing happens, right? So
I mean, we're 30 years in the software, but we're really at the infancy of it, right? I mean, we still don't know what we can do with software.
Oh yeah, it's so early. It's and now that you get AI, ML, all that, you got machines figuring this stuff out too. We're barely into this.
Yeah. So what's your thoughts on that? Some AI. Do you want a computer to be able to talk to you like I'm talking to you right now?
Well, I don't know if I'm a little skeptical that'll happen. I think AI, machine learning, that is very good at things that computers are very good at, right?
Yeah.
So calculating stuff and everything, it's always good at that stuff. It does creep me out a little bit because I'm sure it's happened to you when suddenly I've got the Apple Music Pod thing. I can't remember what they're called. Little Apple devices and the watch and the phone, and you say the wrong thing and it starts talking to you. My car's done that before. I've been driving down the road and said something to my wife, and then the car's saying something to me. I'm like, what the hell? Right? Like that kind of creeps you out a little bit. But that's actually, to me, is it's so early with that stuff that it doesn't even know when to interrupt. So it interrupts at the word, it doesn't. It's for artificial intelligence, kind of it's kind of dumb, man. My car should not be saying that. If it knew anything, it would know I'm not talking to it.
All right. So imagine this, right? There's machine learning, which means, it adjusts its behavior to the inputs that you have. So me, I'm kind of sarcastic. So if I'm talking, I might go, yeah, that's why you're so dumb or something. I mean, I might just start accidentally training it to be sarcastic back. And then it would piss me off where I didn't like its personality.
And that's probably where it's going, because that is a big part of, especially with the B2C, like the consumer sort of products, they're really trying to make it more human and more approachable sounding, even though it's all fake, it's all artificial, but they're getting better at it.
Can you imagine arguing with your computer?
I've argued with my computer for 20 years. But then when it starts talking back to you, that's when you got a problem. It's I was talking to one of my staff one day, and I'm like, man, you'll never know the satisfaction of slapping a CRT upside the side when it's like, come on, the computer. I slap because they have this big giant monitors, a little screen in the middle. You can't do that on a little LCD, LED or whatever laptop. It's not the same. It's not the same as smacking the side of the monitor.
Yeah, I've got one of those. It's just a Mac. It's all in one, just a screen that isn't this thick.
That thick, you can't. Yeah,
You would knock it off the desk.
yeah. Pretty soon you cut your hand if you try and smack the computer. But I remember those old big box ones. You're like, come on. Well, because it was, computers probably weren't nearly as reliable back then either. Why aren't you printing to the dot matrix printer that's plugged right in?
I think my dad did that with the TV too, right? He slapped the side, and I don't know what that did. I think it really all it did was shook the rabbit ears in the back.
Yeah, it makes it feel better.
It made it feel better, right? So I can't imagine arguing with the computer. I can't imagine what I would think. I'm like going, yes, I know you're factually correct, but you're not getting the concept. You're not getting. And then
yeah.
You say, no, it's 77,000 light years away. I'm like, going, yes, I get that, but I'm trying to tell you a joke.
Yeah, I think it'll be a long time before it's better than it is at doing what we needed to do.
That's funny. So, all right. So, what have you learned? First of all, let's talk about our site, right? I don't even know how long we've done this. This seems like a shorter one all of a sudden. So, but let's talk about our website, what we're trying to do there, because if I remember right, we're talking about failing fast.
Yeah.
We came into this podcast with no preconceived notion. Matter of fact, our whole pillars of strategic thinking was, I don't want to put a lot of work in on this.
Yeah.
Because as soon as there's a lot of work in, it's
we found out we can bullshit about anything, and like our but our website and we now have a store up there, and you can buy some beer and everything. We don't have 50 hours into that. We probably have 50 minutes into that. So that's, we
used a template. Remember, we picked a template, just copied and pasted some stuff in, and I might put, I don't know, 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes a month in just putting the beer logos on the page.
Yeah.
That might be the most. Everything else is pretty much automated.
Yeah. And that's how you find out. Like, that's how we've done this from the start. It's like, we don't dive in and, we're not doing big, long plans on our episodes. And it literally a minute before we went on, oh, what are we doing today? Oh, here's a quote. All right. That's what we're doing. And and we can still talk for an hour and a half on that if we want. Like, but it is true. It's like, hey, we've learned so much doing this podcast, and getting more people listening to us and everything. It just little by little, step by step, we're not diving in and investing a pile of money and everything else. Just it's fun, and we're learning at the same time.
Well, we had that failure. I mean, and we gave up on it really fast. Remember, we had the wisdom experiment.
Yeah. We were streaming for those of you'll I guarantee you probably haven't heard of it because we hadn't, but we saw this opportunity to stream to something called Wisdom. It was an app, and we did. And that really wasn't that interesting. And then at some point, it dropped us in the middle of an episode and said, you had too much dead air. And if you guys have been listening to us, there's not a lot of dead air on here. We're yapping about something the whole time. And that was a quick, this is not the right place to be. It was a pretty good reminder, not a great place. So we were on streaming live to YouTube for a while. Now we're trying Facebook, just to see, hey, let's give this a try, right?
We've had some people come on and off, right? They come in, they drop, they come in, they drop. Hey, if you're coming in and dropping, or if you're just coming in and listening for a few minutes, go subscribe, go listen to the full episodes. I really do think it's worth it. I learned something from Blaine every single week that we do this, and I really appreciate his comments.
Yeah, and I learned so much from you, Mike, and I learned business stuff from you. I'm not sure what you learned from me, probably something about my beer. But we've got 47 other episodes up there. We cover all kinds of really interesting topics, and the Apple Podcast, Spotify, that's where we get everyone listening to us. But we want to try this live thing because it's really cool to have people kind of join us live and listen to us while we're just kind of blowing through a topic, right? Yeah.
So I mean, but when we're talking about failing, we haven't given up on a lot of things with this podcast so far. I mean, Wisdom, I think, was the big one. A other than that, I think we've been pretty consistent. We've added little things. I don't think we've given up on anything yet. So,
No. But what we did do is we found that we were doing topics that we were coming up with new topic, and then we did one week based on some quote. And then we thought that's a really neat way to spur a conversation, but have a really interesting conversation. So now we're doing a whole bunch of quotes that are business quotes that people hear all the time, but sometimes you maybe don't catch what it's about, right?
that was so funny how you stumbled upon that, because you came up with the trust but verify. And I go, oh, did you know?
Yeah.
And that became a new theme for the show. I mean, just that's how innovation usually happens. So it was pretty cool. So we've had people buy us beers. Only people to buy merch so far are you and I. And we have a very special episode coming up where we're going to actually wear some of our merch on the show.
Yeah. Number 50. So we're only 2 away from wearing the merch that we bought. And that's going to be an exciting one. It's going to be like I don't know, what is the 50? The gold anniversary, the gold episode or whatever. Is it gold?
Episode. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Yeah. So that's what we'll do on the thumbnail. We'll actually put like a gold frame on it.
Yeah. And we'll both go out and get gold nose rings.
Yeah, no.
I'm not doing that either. All those. It's not happening. Just want to see if you dove in, I'd be like, yeah, we'll see if he shows up with one, because I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'll do it if you do it.
Yeah, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
That's right. Yeah. All right, so we have a sponsor. We've had a sponsor. The CEO. I'm actually joined today by the CEO of Dry Run, who is a sponsor of our show. And you've been our one and our only sponsor. You can sponsor the show if you want to. We have room for one more sponsor, right? So go to our website. There's a button right next to the Dry Run logo that says sponsor this show. Go ahead and click that, and we can run through pricing with you. And you could be the next sponsor or the additional sponsor for Nobody Told Me with Mike and Blaine. So Blaine, tell us about Dry Run.
Yeah. So Dry Run, our sponsor, of course, my company. So, hey, what are we going to do here? We didn't go far and wide on finding a sponsor, but Dry Run is a cash management financial modeling tool, absolutely essential today for virtually every business to understand where they're heading, where the cash flow is heading, and start to figure out how are we going to grow this thing? How are we going to stay in business when things start to go south? And most importantly, if you're a CPA or a CFO and you're advising clients, or you're in a business and you're advising the management team, we're going to help you save 80-90% of the time you would spend in spreadsheets. And we're going to help you deliver information that management team is going to understand, and you're going to have to be able to have great conversations and move that business forward. So come and check us out, dryrun.com. Whether it's you're internal to a business or whether you're advising other businesses, we serve both, and we'd love to talk with you.
Good. Hey, thanks, Blaine. And I'll tell you what, what'd you learn today? Anything?
Oh, you always ask me this, and what I learned was I still got to keep avoiding these 10% ones, because you start getting near the end and like, oh man, I should have not got through all of this so quickly. But no, it's just a good reminder to do things fast and also cheap. And I think you actually had the one where it was actually free, like test free, test fast, and be really innovative. That opens the door to be really innovative when you're not afraid to fail. You're not afraid to fail fast. You're not putting a ton of money out, but that's so you can find some of those gems that you want to stick with.
Yeah, and I still always lean on you for the hiring stuff, right? Because I've always felt like that's where I've struggled, is being able to find good talent. I mean, once they're there, I'm great at developing talent, but finding it is just like, it takes a while. And you said you almost give me validation, whereas, hey, hire slow, fire fast. So that's kind of one of the things that kind of sticks in my mind. And I believe I kind of learned that from you, because I was always like, hire fast, fire fast.
Yeah. Well, and I'm fortunate because we are in a different industry, but I will say when we have hired, the last probably 3 that did not work out, 4 that did not work out over a number of years here, I can almost guarantee every one of them, my biggest mistake was hiring too fast. And it wasn't hiring too fast just in not vetting them enough. It was also not spending enough time to talk with enough other good candidates. And sometimes you got to wait and wait and wait to get those good candidates in the door. And when you find them, they're absolutely outstanding for your business. And when you rush it and get the wrong one, it just never seems to work out well.
All right. Hey, and at the end of the show here, don't forget to go check out mikeandblaine.com. And I want to thank Rojo. I rarely say something about a beer at the end of the show, but this is going to sound weird, but only because like Courtney doesn't like the taste of beer, right? So she doesn't drink a lot of beer. So if you're somebody that doesn't really like the taste of beer, try Rojo, right? It is one that you cannot taste the beer behind it because it's, again, infused or brewed with that red soda, red cola.
Nice.
You cannot taste the beer in this thing, or I can't. So it's remarkable that, and I better make sure it has beer in it. I might have picked up a soda because I can't read the.
Well, that would be a little disappointing. It's like our beer of the week isn't a beer.
Well, it says brewing company, but I can't tell. Oh, it's a Hefeweizen with yeah.
No, that's a beer, man. That's just with some other stuff mixed in.
Oh, 5.5. All right. So I'm about that. That's why I'm still cognizant.
Yeah. I see. I got the jumbo 10% can, total darkness. But this was a really nice beer. It was quite. They call it an imperial dessert porter, and it kind of felt a little desserty. So not a bad beer at all from New Level Brewing. So that was thanks, guys. Good beer.
Right on. Hey, you've been listening to Nobody Told Me with Mike and Blaine. I'm Mike Blaine. That is Blaine Birch, the author of Pandemic Cash Flow. If you haven't checked out his book, go to Amazon and check it out. You'll learn a lot. So Blaine, good to see you again.
Thanks, Mike. Next week, 49 next week, right? So we're only 2 away.
49. If only I was 49 again.
Oh, well, I am 49. I'm
You're living the good life.
barreling down on that big 5-0, but boy, I still feel good because I'm only 49. Things will start to get creaky.
All right, man. Well, invite me to 50. Invite me.
We'll do it, Matt. Yeah, we'll do it. All right.